I'm here today a little bit out of my role. I'm representing Art Remp, who's at a conference today, and he's asked me to present this item to you. I also have with me today representatives from Extreme Networks, Mr. Mark Walker, he's a senior account executive for us, and Mr. Sam Western, who's a systems engineer, and they're here to answer any questions that I can't. So this item today is to authorize the CEO to purchase equipment to replace our existing data communication network. This supports our 5-year strategic goals, number 3, which is facilities of the future, and number 4, safety and security. A little bit of background on our network. We host a fairly complicated high-speed digital communication network. It consists of over 50 devices, edge and core devices. These are switches. The analogy, I guess, is a switch in a train yard. They switch data packets all over your network. The core switches are in the center. They're the heart of the network. The edge switches are at the periphery. They're the capillaries, I guess you would say, in that analogy. They support and underpin all of our mission-critical activities here. Administrative, facilities and maintenance, passenger experience, and future tenant services. I have that in bold because we're on the cusp of implementing something called shared use, where we would actually take on the responsibility of providing much of the IT for the airlines. That requires a step up in our capabilities, not only capacity, but also reliability or uptime, and so you're going to see that reflected in this proposal. This, in my opinion, is absolutely necessary in order to take on that role of providing airline IT. You'll notice safety and security is not listed there. That's by design. The safety and security has their own equally complicated but separate network. And I mention that now because I'm going to come back to that here a little further in the presentation. Currently, the system that we have was installed in 2012, the majority of it. There were some updates done in 2016, but the bulk of the system is approaching the end of its useful life, which is 5 to 7 years. The challenge that we have is that there's a 9 to 12 month supply chain delay, and so we're escalating the placement of this order so that we will have this new system in place by the time it goes out of its useful life. The current hardware that we have, that's a picture of it there. It's not much to look at. It is Extreme Network equipment. It is very reliable and has served us well, but Extreme stopped selling it in November of 2019. It will go out of support just a little over a year from now, and what that means is that you can't apply patches, security patches, and it becomes difficult to maintain. And given that this is the backbone of our operation here, we can't really let it get into that situation. And then there's the supply chain issue. This is the new equipment. Still not much to look at. It is a nice shade of purple, and it's new, and there's more of it, but essentially very similar. This, in addition to just replacing what we have, though, it would implement a redundant set of core switches. So currently, we have a single core. Although it has been very reliable, that does represent a potential single point of failure. This new system will have redundant cores that back each other up. We'll be replacing all of the edge switches, and that's the bulk of them are here in the terminal building, but we do have them sprinkled throughout all of our campus buildings. They're interconnected by fiber optic cabling. This proposal does include a line item for a laboratory or a lab where we can test and vet security patches and feature upgrades before we roll them out into production. Currently, all of our equipment is in production, and so when it comes time to upgrade the software on it and to apply security patches, etc., we have to just kind of trust. I was going to say pray, but we trust and implement, but it's really much better to vet those things in a lab environment before you put them into production. The proposed hardware is also manufactured by Extreme Networks. It's compatible with the aforementioned security network, and we do have on our radar at some point to merge those two networks together. So by staying with Extreme Networks, it will make that possible. And in order to, I know $1.6 million is a lot of money, but to try to keep it as low cost as possible, with help from Extreme Networks, they helped us to engineer this at no cost, and we'll be installing it primarily with internal resources assisted by Extreme Networks and their business partner that I'll introduce to you here in a minute. The benefits of this: increased security, efficiency, and reliability. And these will have a similar useful life for the next 5 to 7 years. This will position us well to continue to operate our business, expand, and to take on shared tenant services. It is based on what's called a zero trust network access control technology. That sounds bad, zero trust, but what it actually means is that we don't trust anything. We start from the assumption that we can't trust anything or anybody, and this equipment allows us to grant access only as much as is required for people to do their job and no more. And they do that through a technology called network access control. The system doesn't just interconnect you, it knows who you are, and it interconnects you only to the level that you're required. This is, because we're staying with a universal platform, everything will be from Extreme Networks. This makes it easier to maintain it through licensing, spare parts. It's all managed from the cloud, so we can securely observe and monitor the system from anywhere. Company background: Extreme Networks, established in 1996. They're based in San Jose. They design, develop, and manufacture wired and wireless network infrastructure equipment. They're one of the top-tier vendors in the industry. Then they develop software as well for network management, policy, analytics, security, and access control. And it's that combination of sound hardware and really good software that make them a great right solution for us. They work through business partners, so IP Solutions is their recommended business partner to us. They were established in 2005. They're in El Dorado Hills. They have a deep, extensive experience in data networking, IT engineering, implementation, both in private and public sectors, and they are a Diamond Extreme Network partner. And because of their level of understanding of the products, and they only represent Extreme products, and they're familiar with our facility here. They helped us install the security network. They are an excellent partner for us. In terms of the fiscal impact, it is a $1.6 million commitment. It is exempted from competitive acquisition through NRS 332-115, which allows for a sole source acquisition of computer hardware, software, and associated peripherals. This is a summary of the cost by line item. A couple things I want to draw your attention to here. This 10 gig, that's the speed of the network. Gig is billion. It's 10 billion bits per second, literally bits of information. So think of it's a large amount of information. It's a high-speed network. So it's a quantum step up for us in terms of capacity. It includes these network access control licenses, which we don't enjoy now. This will enable us to do that zero trust, least privileged access that we really need. That's a selfish concern that I have now that I'm wearing a cyber security hat. This is the line item for the laboratory, and also the laboratory, in addition to being a laboratory, serves as kind of a warm spares repository. So those are here, they're operating, they're functional. If we need a quick spare, we can take it from the lab, put it into production, and then backfill into the laboratory. There is a modest contingency there, 1.65%, bringing the total to $1.6 million. And so this is the recommendation that the board authorized the present CEO to purchase Extreme Network Inc. network switch hardware and associated peripherals from IP Solutions Inc. in the amount not to exceed $1.6 million, hardware exempt from competitive bidding pursuant to NRS 332-115. That concludes my presentation. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Marty. That was interesting. I think it's a necessary in the world we live in, you certainly can't afford to be behind the power curve on your software and security. So I appreciate that. Do we have any questions? Jennifer?
Yeah, definitely not a very sexy topic, but necessary. Will this, in 5 to 7 years, does it have the same lifespan as the previous system? We'll be looking at retrofitting, upgrading, and it's just a continuous process, correct?
With your permission, I might have one of our representatives
Sure.
answer that
It's fine.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would one of you like to take that? Sure. Oh, please, come up here. Then everyone can hear you.
Thank you. Yes, obviously technology moves very quickly. And so, what we try to do from a manufacturer standpoint is have the life cycle around the 5 to 7 year time frame. And then after that, we service it for 5 years. So you're really getting a 10 to 12 year life expectancy of the product. From a service and support standpoint, we most likely will end of sale 5 to 7 years and adopt new technology, higher speeds, higher bandwidth, just as what technology provides. Right. But we also understand that you just can't rip and replace every 5 years. It's just, so what we try to do is support the customer through a 10 to 12 year.
Great, thank
period.
you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel very comfortable with jumping on this at this time for sure.
Okay, any other questions? No, thank you very much. That was a, oh, Richard, do you have any questions?
No, everything looks good on my end. Thank you so much. I realize the importance of keeping our system up and running. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And also, it's nice to have a known product and vendor and software implementers, because those are very tricky when you don't have that in place and you're a training ground. Thank you very much. Can I entertain a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you for
Okay.
coming
Thank
out.
you, guys.
Now we'll move on to item 5.2, Board Memo 05/2022-26, Adoption of Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Fiscal Year 22-23 Liability Property Insurance Program, and approval of premiums in the amount not to exceed $1,269,054. And we have Alex Kovacs here to present.
Morning, Chair Gianoli, trustees, CEO Griffin. For the record, Alex Kovac, Director of Finance. I will have a few presentations for you today, so please bear with me here. Thank you for your patience. Starting off with the proposed liability and property insurance program for fiscal year 2023. Before I start the presentation, I would like to introduce Ms. Nazreen Kopecki. She is the account executive with the Gallagher team. And then also we have Brad Meinhardt, who is participating virtually. He is the area executive vice president with the Gallagher company. Starting off with a little bit of background here. So we have 11 different lines of insurance, ranging from property, equipment, airport liability insurance, all the way to cyber security. Marty left, but I'm sure that he appreciates the cyber insurance. Our broker on record is Arthur J. Gallagher, and they represent us for all our insurance needs, from property, liability, and also workers' comp. The process for fiscal year 23 became more challenging than I originally anticipated, and I know that Gallagher did a fantastic job trying to find us the best prices and the best coverage out there available on the market. What we found out is that there's less capacity out there on the market, so in some cases we had to go away from the insurance companies that we're currently with and place insurance with other companies. Some relatively significant. I'm trying. I'm going to try to crawl into this thing somehow. Because some of the insurance companies had some difficulty providing us with quotes for premiums. They don't like to do that more than 30 days in advance. 30 years, I wish. 30 days in advance. What you see here is we had to include some not to exceed premium amounts. One of those is the difference in conditions. You see here just under $156,000. Since we sent out the board memo, the current indication is probably we're going to land around 151,000 premium. The other one is the cyber liability insurance. You see here not to exceed 84,200. That is 42% increase over the expiring in the current fiscal year. Early indication again, we're going to land somewhere around 70,000. So quite a bit lower than what you see here. So that would be about a 20% increase. In addition to the cost increase in premiums, there's also going to be an increase in retention. So our deductible is increasing from 20,000 to 50,000. As far as the coverage remains the same for the new fiscal year. The liability insurance renewal for next fiscal year is anticipated to cost just under $100,000. We're proposing to move forward with Star Insurance. The current company is QBE. They're unable to write a full $250 million limit that we currently have. So that's the reason you see they're only proposing to write 40% of the $250 million limit. And the new proposal from Star does not include the excess liability coverage for the air races. The one reduction that I can mention here is the public official liability, which comes in 1.7% decrease. No specific reason for it, but I think if it's $100, we're going to take that as a savings. So definitely good news there. This is a summary of the proposal for next fiscal year. Again, there are a couple of items that say not to exceed for a total of just below $1.3 million coverage premium. The fiscal impact, again, 1.3 million, 10.7% higher than expiring. That number is most likely going to come down a little bit. As I mentioned, the difference in conditions is going to come in a little bit cheaper, and cyber insurance is also going to cost a little bit less. There are some savings as compared to budget. We included a little bit of an increase there just because we anticipate buying some additional equipment for next fiscal year, some additional vehicles. There's a fire truck that we're expecting to receive. So there's going to be some additional costs that will happen during the fiscal year, and we like to have a little bit of room there to be able to pay for those things. It brings me to the recommendation. It is hereby moved that the Board of Trustees approve the fiscal year 22-23 liability and property insurance program and authorize the President CEO of his designee to bind the coverages and pay the fiscal year 22-23 premiums in the amount not to exceed $1,269,054. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alex. Do we have any questions, comments? Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh my God, the increase in rates is staggering. With that being said, and the insurance you said is kind of equal, you can sleep at night, you feel comfortable that we're covered adequately with all of these different lines of business?
That's a very good question. What somebody that worked for a very long time in the insurance industry told me is you can never have too much insurance, but you have to figure out what's a reasonable limit. So from that perspective, yes, we feel that this is the right balance based on cost and benefit ratio.
Okay. And this may be a different discussion, and let me know if it is, to mend the gap, to fill the gap with the liability for the air races. Is that a different discussion? Perfect. We can talk about that later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Richard, any questions, comments?
No, I just know how expensive insurance is these days with our new venture with our own office for Wells Fargo Advisors. I was just amazed at what costs are, but kind of is what it is. You've got to have it. You've got to pay what it's going to cost us, and hopefully we never have to use it.
Yes, sadly, if you, at home, you know what your insurance is doing, and people are canceling, and it's just been a rough market for the insurance industry with lots of losses and all different lines, not just natural disasters, but all sorts of losses. So unfortunately, a fact of life. So sadly, I appreciate your presentation, and I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that we accept the insurance proposal that's not up on the board.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Richard, go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on now to item 5.3, Board Memo 05-2022-27, and it is the adoption of Resolution Number 556, amending Resolution Number 551, establishing the airport rates and charges for fiscal year 22-23 pursuant to the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority budget for fiscal year 22-23, and it's Alex.
Surprise, I'm still here. Master Fee Resolution number 556, as mentioned, amending Resolution 551 that was approved by the board last fiscal year. Starting off with a little bit of background on the Master Fee Resolution, and more importantly on the fees, rates, and charges that the airport is able to charge based on the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Act. We also have the FAA grant insurance number 24 that requires us to charge rental rates, fees, and other charges to keep the airport as self-sustaining as possible. The Master Fee Resolution is updated at least once a year. That coincides with the budget process, and it gives the organization an opportunity to reevaluate all the rental fees and charges to make sure that they're reflecting cost recovery in some cases, and we have the ability to make adjustments. Starting off with our airline rates and charges. Landing fees, we charge the same landing fees for both signatory and non-signatory airlines. You see here the proposed fee is $3.50. That is slightly discounted compared to the actual cost recovery by using approximately $1.1 million in federal stimulus funds. Without those funds, the rate would be around $3.82. When it comes to the terminal rental rates, we do have differential rates for our signatory and non-signatory airlines. You see the non-signatory airline rate, the average rate is increasing from $78.99 to $96.13. However, when you look at the signatory airline rate, again, the average is decreasing to $54.40. You may be wondering why that's happening. You might know that our signatory airlines benefit from the net revenue share. That's an approximate number, so it's an estimate that is included as a credit in the rental rate calculation. That revenue share is estimated at $5.2 million for next fiscal year. There are no changes for the baggage handling system charges. That's 100% cost recovery over our cost operating the baggage handling system. Some of the other rates and charges that are changing for next fiscal year. First, what impacts our airlines is the ramp overnight fee, or also called RON. That's increasing to $86. The gate use fee is also increasing to $300. The new ticket counter use fee, it's not really new, but what we did is because we have some capacity issues in the ticketing hall, we are breaking apart what we currently have in the Master Fee Resolution, and that is per use fee, either a 4-pack of ticket counter or a 5. So we're breaking them out for one ticket counter that actually comes with 2 different check-in spots on both sides, and that is $25 moving forward per employment. The disposal fee, that is, again, just 100% cost recovery, and it's based on the prior year's actual expenses, and that increases to around $6,600 a month. All of our leases that have a CPI adjustment included are going to increase starting on July 1st. The March CPI, as you may know, is 8.5%. However, in some cases, we do have some limits. So if you see the box hangers, they have a 3% limit for increases, and the T hangers have a 2%. So those leases will be adjusted accordingly. Public parking rates. Brandon Mikolite with the Landside team had a presentation for the board last month and talked about the Walker study and the fact that it has been quite a while since we had the rate increases in public parking, 2009 or longer. So what you see here is the proposed rates for next fiscal year. Each one of them is increasing by $2 per day maximum. There are also some changes in the hourly rates, which brings us sooner to or faster to the daily maximum. So the new rates for short-term is going to be $26, long-term $16, long-term surface lot $12. Two new lots that you see here as new additions to the master fee resolution are the yellow parking lot and the blue parking lot. Both of those are actually currently used already in case of need as overflow for public parking. Yellow lot is going to be $14 a day, and the blue parking lot, $12 a day. There are also some changes proposed for the ground transportation. Currently, we are charging for pickup only for taxis and transportation network companies, so the Ubers and Lyfts. That is increasing from $1 per trip to $2 per trip. Peer-to-peer car sharing, that's the Turo model. That's a new addition. It's being introduced for next fiscal year. The treatment is the same as off-airport car rental companies. In addition to that, so we have the 10% gross revenue, that's the same. And in addition to that, there are a few public parking space rentals where the cars are going to be parked. Customer facility charges are also increasing by $1 from $5.50 to $6.50, and we have informed the car rental companies of that increase. That brings me to the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board adopt resolution number 556, a master fee resolution setting forth airport rates and charges for fiscal year 22-23 pursuant to the proposed fiscal year 2023 annual budget. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alex. Questions, concerns? Yeah, I think we've talked about this in a roundabout way and specifically about the parking. So if we have no questions, Art?
One question on the GA again, the 2%, that was on those existing east and west hangars. I know that we approved that. Aren't we getting some new hangars, and where are we at? Maybe Darren or someone would know better where we are on going to the new, some of the new rentals.
Are you referring to new construction?
Yes. Yes.
So that's the Stellar development, and they are in the NEPA process with the FAA now, hoping to be through that and to begin construction this summer. That's somewhat optimistic, but you know, we're trying everything we can do to help them. As the board knows, the NEPA process is long and slow, but Stellar's ready to go. We're ready to go. The sooner they break ground and start building new hangars, the better it'll be for our tenants. We have a lengthy waiting list, but certainly 2% and 3% increases don't keep up with CPI right now. We've kept rates flat for 3 years, which is important to remember during the pandemic, which was the right thing to do. We're not holding them flat anymore because all of our costs are increasing across the board. I think they understand that. Hopefully we don't see too many years or months of 8.5% CPI, or we'll have to reconsider those agreed upon rate increases. But for now, we're fine.
Yeah, and that's why I think we could lose 6% a year in a few years.
You can't string too many years together doing that.
Doing
but
that.
Let's hope that doesn't continue.
So that one hopefully doesn't change.
Okay, any other questions?
Quick question on my end.
Okay, go ahead, Richard.
You know, we know that we have inflation that is just staggering. And we know part of it is due to supply chain issues, you know, things like that. But I was in a afternoon session yesterday with Vanguard, and Fidelity and a few other economists, and they were talking about inflation right now is high. They expect it to stabilize, they expect it to drop, and their projection going forward for inflation is roughly 4%. Numbers are 3.3% to 4%. If we go into deflation, do we reduce fees or we just keep them where they are? I'm just trying to figure out this whole inflation thing. And, where we have caps is probably working, but how do we figure this inflation, which is kind of screwy, wonky right now? Does that make sense?
Does, Trustee Jay.
So,
The
do we
CPI
review this a year from now to see where inflation is again? How do we deal with this? Because I don't think we've ever had to deal with this in the past.
We haven't had any CPI increases for the last 3 years. So since the pandemic started, there were no CPI changes. So we are probably not even catching up with this adjustment to what the last couple of years would have been.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so we're kind of playing a little bit of catch up because we did, which was the right thing, as Darren mentioned, to do during the pandemic, don't increase it. So now we're just playing a little bit of catch up, but we're still probably behind and we may never fully catch up.
Well, and honestly, you're really you renew these every year, and you're not going to feel anything to that degree probably a year from now. I think we're going to jump around here for a year. So I think the fact that you redo every year, you're going to have the time to react if you need to.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. Okay. No, that's good. Alex, as usual, great job.
Trustee Jay, let me just add a couple more comments here. It's important to remember, one, that this budget doesn't start until July 1st, and the situation is very fluid, and who knows where we'll be on July 1st economically. The budget is kind of like a battleship. It's very slow to turn this thing, and so we always have the opportunity at mid-year, halfway through the fiscal year, to reevaluate the rates and charges, our financial situation, and make any adjustments that we need to. I think we have the ability at any time, if we needed, to ask the board to amend or update the master fee resolution because of severe economic changes. We would be back to do that for sure. I like to let these things mature and move slowly when it comes to our budget and our rates and charges, always remembering that the core purpose of our rates and charges is to fund our existence, and that we're not trying to over-collect. We're trying to collect enough to pay all of the bills and all of the people and services that we provide, and put some in the bank and save for capital and be market competitive, right? We also have to make adjustments on the cost side of the ledger. If for some reason inflation was going out of control and we couldn't afford some things, we would adjust. So I agree with you. It's unprecedented, but I also try to always take the long view when it comes to our budget and proceed with caution. This is a good approach we have right now for sure. Thank you.
Darren. Any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Richard J., second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Alex. I think we have you one more time. Now item number, oh gosh, I can't see without my glasses. 5.4. 05/2022-28, adoption of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority's fiscal year 22-23 budget, July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023. And Alex is up again. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alex Kovac with the presentation of the proposed budget for fiscal year 22-23. We did have a board workshop on April 29th, and we had more of a detailed discussion at that time about the proposed budget for next fiscal year. This is more intended to be first as an overview, and then I will highlight some of the changes that have happened since the board workshop. Total revenues, we're anticipating right over 100 million at 102.4 million for next fiscal year. That includes both operating and non-operating revenues. Our operating expenses are just below $58 million at $57.9 million for next fiscal year. Fixed asset budget proposed for next year is $1.4 million. We do have a capital improvement program estimated currently at $24.2 million for next fiscal year. The budget was based on an in-plane passenger forecast of 2.4 million in-plane passengers. Landed weight anticipated for next fiscal year is 3.4 million thousand pounds. That sounds weird every time I say it. Some of the key metrics that I would like to highlight here for next fiscal year is, first of all, the signatory cost per employment, $7.47 is the estimate for next fiscal year. Days cash on hand, 451 days cash on hand for next fiscal year. I know it sounds high, but it's still below the median for all airports. To achieve all of these key metrics, we intend to use federal stimulus funds of $13.7 million. 12.5 of that is allocated to the capital improvement program, and I will highlight that moving forward. These are the adjustments that we have made post-workshop. Personnel services, there is a decrease in the cost of workers' comp, and I don't want to steal Larry's thunder. I know that he's going to be back. He has a presentation on the workers' comp program for next fiscal year. As you see here, a $210,000 decrease for next year with a proposal from Star Insurance, the same company that we intend to move forward with for our airport liability insurance. Collective bargaining negotiations with police and fire, they are still ongoing, and potentially they may require a change in the budget at mid-year. Purchase services, there are a couple of increases there from the IT team. Security log monitoring, $80,000 additional budget, and the MAGVAR security training, that's actually a purchase service coming forward from the security team, and that is for $5,200. There are some savings that we were able to discover since then. PMO, or project management assistance, that's a decrease of $50,000, and the ANOMS contract, a decrease of just over $11,000. Administrative expenses, you heard me talk about the liability and property insurance. That's an increase of $61,700. And professional development, that's for staff training from the IT department. That's also an increase of $12,500. Overall, the O&M budget has decreased slightly, as you can see highlighted here. The fixed assets and equipment proposed for next fiscal year has increased by a couple of items you see here from IT. First, the video storage hardware, estimated to cost around $200,000, and a firewall replacement for $50,000. Capital projects, we did make an adjustment there for the CFCs that we intend to spend on the CONRAC Phase 2 in next fiscal year. That's an increase of $367,000. And I know that Brad also has a presentation specifically on the CONRAC project. Total revenues, as I mentioned, $102 million. A couple of highlights here. The increases since the workshop are in the CARES CRISA area. That's a slight increase. And we also had a small change in the non-airline operating revenues. Total operating revenues are $68.2 million, which is a 42% increase compared to the current budget. Approximately 31% of those revenues come from airline sources, and 69% come from non-airline revenues. My favorite chart, again, this is highlighting all the non-airline revenue sources that we have. With the rate increase in parking, that's now the #1 revenue source, estimated at just under $16.5 million. And second after that is the auto rental at $11.2 million. Airline rates and charges, I went over these when I was talking about the master fee resolution, but just to recap, landing fees, $3.50 as the average. Well, that's the same for both signatory and non-signatory airlines. Terminal rental rates, The average terminal rental rate for non-SIGs is $96.13, and for our signatory airlines is $54.40. Again, that's the average. We do have them separated in the master fee resolution depending on space type, ranging from the most expensive, which is the ticket rates, down to the outside storage, which is the cheapest. We do anticipate having a $5.2 million in revenue sharing credit that we're using for signatory airlines to buy down the rate. Baggage handling system fee remains the same at $1.24 for signatory and $1.37 for non-signatory airlines. Operating expenses, the current estimate is $57.9 million, which is $8 million or 16% increase over the current year budget. I mentioned the additions for equipment and fixed assets, so the total budget is $1.4 million. You see I added here the video storage hardware from the IT department, $200,000, and the firewall replacement estimated at $50,000 for next fiscal year. The capital program proposed $24.2 million. That includes the increase for the CONRAC Phase 2 of $367,000. Shows you how do we intend to actually pay for all this. So the main source of funds comes from the federal stimulus in form of CARES and ARPA funds at $12.5 million. The customer facility charges, which will pay for the CONRAC Phase 2, and then there's also a QTA equipment replacement program that's included for next year, estimated at $8.6 million, and RTA funds, along with the airline rates and charges, right over $3 million for a total of $24.2 million. Federal stimulus funds, I know that there's a lot going on this slide here, but just to kind of give you a sense of what you're seeing, we have the three different buckets, CARES, CRISA, and ARPA. We have exhausted the CRISA funds. We use that to pay back our debt. Currently, or actually by the end of the next fiscal year, we anticipate having $4.7 million unallocated for CARES and just over $11 million for ARPA. So approximately 71% of the federal stimulus funds would have been used by the end of next fiscal year. Some of the concluding comments, we do have a balanced budget that you see in front of you today. It does reflect 289 FTEs. We added some positions and included salary increases per the bargaining units. Operating and capital budget additions that I mentioned earlier. We are using the federal stimulus funds to buy down some of the airline rates. And our budget always strives for a competitive cost per enplanement. That brings me to the recommended motion. It is hereby moved that the Board of Trustees adopts the budget for the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority for fiscal year 22-23. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Alex. That was a very good summary, and I was curious about where we were on those federal stimulus monies. I thought we had to be getting close to exhausting them. So, any questions? Excuse me?
Richard has his hand
Do
raised
we
on
actually
Zoom.
vote on this one, or is this? I'm
Yeah,
sorry, Richard.
Yes,
Jason,
yes,
question?
today we have to, I think in the month of May, we have to act on the budget to get it done. That's why we moved our meeting up a week, as I recall.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other?
Right, I remember that, but do we vote on it today and again on Thursday?
Yes.
Or is it just a Thursday vote?
That's
Suzanne
question.
voted. We vote on it both days.
Okay,
Thank you. Then
okay.
I'll move
right.
that we accept the motion as presented.
Okay, Trustee Cunningham?
Thank you. My question has to do with your FTE, and I'm looking at the something you included in the board packet. So the net in 2021 FTE total was 280.5, and then current fiscal we dropped down to 275.5, and the proposal is to go up to 289, which is 8.5 of an increase from a normal year, I would say. I just want to make sure that that is, if you are comfortable with that, CEO Griffin, that if that is enough, do you need to add more people, or are you comfortable with that number? You're doing a lot this next year.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We're back to a full pre-pandemic staffing model with this budget. We had a number of frozen positions, which we don't do anymore. We basically went through the list and added in all of the positions that were requested so that we don't have any positions that aren't funded. Everything is fully funded in this budget. It got us all the way to 289, which is everything we used to have, and then maybe a little bit more with the additions we've had to do in landside to keep up with the parking. We've added a number of funded positions there. You know, I reserve the right to come back and augment the budget if we need more people. I think the airlines would come after me if I add any more right now, but this feels like the right amount for where we're at today, knowing that there could be choppy waters ahead that slows our business down and we might have to adjust there, or we pick up momentum and we can get even more work done. There's really no way to tell, but we're having a lot of success recruiting right now. All credit to Larry and his team. We're getting a lot of people in and filling a lot of these jobs, which is actually more of a challenge than funding them, quite frankly. It's getting the people. So we're on a good trend right now. So we'll see how it goes, but at the end of the day, we want to have everything that we need to take on all the ambitious goals that we have. So we'll monitor it closely.
Good.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, I was just going to, when I went through this, you did a lot of, which I think are good things. You changed positions and tried to right size the type of position and did away with some and recreated, which you could tell there was a lot of thought put into what you really needed versus what we had. So I felt comfortable with those changes. Anything else?
Yeah, I feel very comfortable with the budget too. We've spent a lot of time going through. I'm glad we did the workshops, and thank goodness for CARES. You know, it carried us through this time, and now we can get on with life, hopefully.
Can I add one more comment about that? You know, I just want to emphasize how proud I am of our team, of how we've used the CARES, CRISA, ARPA. Our approach has been very measured. We've resisted airline pressure to just dump everything into their rate base immediately and give them all the credit for it. We benefited a lot of our tenants with relief programs over the last 2 years. We've kept rates flat by utilizing these funds, and now we're pivoting to doing a lot of capital with it, which benefits all of the airlines and the tenants as well. And at the end of this year, we'll still have $15 million if all goes as planned, and we'll figure out what's the highest and best use in that last year and a half before they time out. But I really think this was what Congress intended, was for us to keep everybody whole as much as we can, make sure the benefits go to as wide an airport audiences as possible, and get the money out the door. Don't be sitting on it into the last year, and so we've showed a steady spend rate. So I just a credit to Alex and Randy and our whole team and Tina's shop for everything that we've done with this money. And you know, the airlines understand what we're doing here. We are using about 1.1, we think, to buy down the landing fee, which, as we talked about, was spiking. So that's a good use of that money. We want to be competitive. We want to try and give them as much help as we can, but also meet as many needs as we can. So I just wanted to emphasize that it's a unique, probably one-time phenomenon to get this kind of funding in lots of different lines of business, and for airports, infrastructure is certainly a good use of it this year. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Darren. That was a good summary. And also, I think we all appreciate the diligence and how the money was used, and the fact that you're paying pay-as-you-go money on capital and not incurring debt. That's always a smart use of one-time money. So I really appreciate that. Anything else? All right, then, if we have no more questions, I will entertain a motion to approve the 2023 budget as presented.
I would like to move that the Board of Trustees adopts the budget of the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority for fiscal year 22-23.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Alex. You were very,
Very good.
very full of information today.
Yes.
For your
Thank
patience.
you so much. We'll now move on to item 5.5, Board Memo 05/2022-29, authorization for President, CEO to sign an amendment to the executive exclusive option to ground lease and development real estate with RNO Conrack LLC for a new consolidated rental car and ground transportation center located at the Reno Tahoe International Airport, and use $2,555,781 of customer facility charge fees for design, development, and pricing. And we have Brad Erger here today. Thank you.
It's a mouthful, I know. Morning, Chair Gianoli, trustees, CEO Griffin. For the record, Brad Erger, Manager of Properties. I do have representatives from Conrack Solutions and PGAL, the design firm, on the call as well, if questions should come up. So I'm here today to talk to you about the Conrack. We're going to re-engage the project with a new site location that we discussed last month. We're also expanding the scope to include a ground transportation facility. Those changes will require a bit of a budget augmentation. We briefly discussed that last month as well. And these are in support of RTA strategic facilities for the. And you saw this background last month, but just a real high-level overview of the project. Been working on the project since about 2018. In January 2021, we did take a pause so that we could complete the landside planning study and confirm the project site and that we were accommodating all of the landside users. So originally the Conrack was basically intended to move all of the rental car operations out of the parking garage. As you've heard repeatedly, we have a public parking crisis, and so that's one of our primary goals, is to move those operations into their own facility and recover all that public parking area. So that will remain the case with the new expanded project, but we are also going to add in the ground transportation elements of the project at the RAC's request. They really wanted parity to all of the ground transportation users. They wanted to be on equal footing, so we designed this project to accommodate all of those landside uses. In order to accommodate that, we will be moving all the rental car counters out of the bag claim area. That'll also help us regain some of that space that we have utilized there. And again, this will accommodate all users in comprehensive. So we did kind of a deep dive on this last month, so I'll give you a high-level overview of it. And again, Trustee Jay, if you have any questions, feel free to pop in here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll give you kind of the journey of the passenger. We do have bag claim here. Once they pick up their bags, they'll head out this door D, which is where the current, thank you, which is where the current ground transportation operators are today. There will be a walkway that leads everyone to the Conrack. It'll be covered to keep everyone out of the elements. We will have a gap in the walkway that will accommodate emergency services accessing CBP facility and also snow removal equipment, that type of thing. The vendor lot will remain in pretty close to its current location there for deliveries to the airport. Once you get down to the Conrack, you'll walk into the facility. There will be a consolidated customer service building. Each of the racks will have their operations on an individual floor. It is a little bit smaller than previous designs. They wanted to stack those so that they would be able to have their operations together on each floor. There will be attached to the ground transportation center, there will be a small waiting area here for those users, keep them out of the elements there. Moving north, we have parking for the rental car employees, keep them out of our parking garage. We have some administrative and vehicle maintenance bays for the rental cars. And then north is your QTA area. So that's going to be the staging, the fueling facilities, and the car washes. So that's where they turn the cars around and get them ready for re-rent. We also have Gate 155. Again, this has been rotated. It's in the same position, but basically just rotated 90 degrees. We have had several meetings with operations staff and public safety teams to make sure that we're accommodating all of their needs and requests for this. Definitely important there. And then there will be a new entrance to the Gate 155 up here at the very north end of the project. Questions on that? So a brief update on the environmental or FAA process. After the board finance committee meeting last month, we did submit our letter to the FAA. They expect to take between 3 and 4 months to respond to our request. We did receive some initial feedback, and we've been responding to their requests there. As a reminder, if they don't concur with our position that this land should not be subject to FAA oversight, we will have to go through some sort of environmental process, which could take between 6 and 18 months. So cross your fingers there. So the reason I'm here today is to ask you, we're going to be updating several of the amendments to the exclusive option agreement that the rental car, or the Contract Solutions has, sorry. As I spoke about, we're going to update the project site and the scope, so adding the ground transportation elements to that. Since due to those changes, we do have some different site considerations. So those are your enabling projects, utility infrastructure that needs to be moved or relocated, and some of the buildings that need to be built for those existing users. Also have an updated project schedule, and as I said before, we have a little bit of a budget ask that we'll have for you as well. So you looked at this last month. It is a little bit different. Notably, the $700,000 for Austin Commercial. That Austin Commercial is the general contractor for the project that Contract Solutions is hired on. They are doing the cost estimating for the 30%, 60% design, and also the not to exceed budget for the project, which is one of the phase 2 deliverables. We also had some funds in there for assistance that Contract Solutions and PGAL did on the landside planning study, a bit of extra funds for RTA legal. And then to work through that Section 163 process, we did hire on an environmental consultant. So total budget augmentation that we're asking for today is $2.55 million, in addition to the $9.67 that the board previously approved for phase 2. Again, this is just phase 2 of the project, the design, development, and pricing. So we have a total phase 2 budget of $12.25 million. Of that, we've spent right around $4 million, so just over $8 million left in the budget. Should be plenty. We do have currently $16.2 million in the bank for CFCs, so we have plenty to cover this phase of the project, and some to move to phase 3 as well. And as you just heard from Alex, we will be increasing the CFC from $550 to $650 per transaction day, effective with the new budget. Have a new updated schedule. We will be bringing this back to the board at several workshops, 30% and 60% design by the end of this year. We'll finalize some of the pricing and legal documents, and then be back to the board in April for an ask to move to phase 3. After that, Contract Solutions will close on their financing. We'll dive deep into getting building permits and demo permits for some of the buildings we have to take down, and get started as soon as we can there. All goes to plan. We'll have a facility open to the public in early spring of 2026. And with that, I have a recommended motion for you. It's hereby moved to authorize the president and CEO to sign an amendment to the exclusive option to ground lease and develop real estate with R&O Conrack LLC for a new consolidated rental car and ground transportation center at the Reno Tahoe International Airport, and use $2.55 million of customer facility charges for design, development, and pricing. Happy to answer any questions for you.
Brad, does anybody have questions, concerns? No questions? It's definitely a needed item.
Absolutely,
A
yeah.
costly one, but
Yeah.
one that you feel every time you drive in the parking lot. I'm always
Absolutely.
still amazed that there's, what is it, a Tuesday kind of in the middle of May, and there's lots of people. So if we don't have any questions, I will entertain a motion to approve the item as presented.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thanks, Brad. Now we move on to item 5.6, Board Memo 05/2022-30, authorization for President CEO to execute a one-year contract for the Reno Tahoe Airport Authority Employee Workers' Compensation Insurance coverage for fiscal year 22-23 with AIG Aviation in the amount of $217,717, and we have Mr. Larry Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Trustees, CEO Griffin. I'm really excited to be here, I have to tell you. So Julie Blevins, of course, he managed our benefits, and this is considered part of the benefit package, and would normally be here. She's at a conference for Tyler, our HRS system. So I got to do this, and what you may not know is I started my career managing insurers and used to sell this stuff, and then I turned around and became a risk manager. So Alex and I talk about this process a lot, and I'm excited about these things. So. But the purpose is to execute this one-year contract with the AG for workers' compensation in favor of our priority of number 7, people, and actually number 4, safety. Many of you know this is a state law. We're required to have this covered. So it is a mandated benefit, but a benefit nonetheless. Our current coverage expires on 6/30/22. You already heard about Arthur J. Gallagher and their experience with us, and obviously they also place this. So this is usually placed, it's not considered an employee benefit in that world, it's under the P&C, that's how you purchase it. So it's purchased as the package when Alex goes out with Gallagher, it's part of the package that comes out. And frankly, I'm gonna mention their benefit to doing that and what we saw. So our first bid responses, I'm going to come back to this, but you can see QBE, our current carrier, did give us a great rate, and I'm going to explain that. But AIG Aviation, you can see, just kind of came and knocked it out of the park. And I'm going to kind of walk through this and explain why this came about. So first, there's an experience modification factor. So every company has a mod, they call that, and that's done by the National Council on Compensation Insurance, and they do this on your 3-year claims cost experience. And you get a factor, 1.0 is the median, so that's supposed to be, I would tell you in town, I don't know anybody, I have a few people on occasion who break in the 1.0, but generally you're a little over 1.0. An average claim cost is your mod factor. We were at a 1.38. We had quite a few claims loss in 2018, which dropped off for us and got us back to a really great experience, a low mod factor. So this was a great factor in why a lot of this money came down, why everyone you can see was providing us some benefit. The second part of this is that when you package your coverages like this, and you might remember AIG also had the liability coverage, and they had to increase it. So very often they'll look for these other coverages. They want all our business, and in their case, they had scheduled additional $93,000 in addition to the decrease for the mod factor. They went through and they look at things like all the positions. There's a higher level of cost, say, for an HVAC tech than for an administrative person. And they go through all that. And they were able, through our policies, we have a great return to work program. There's a lot we do to try to mitigate these costs, and that was part of this, but I would say about half has to do with negotiations at Gallagher and the team to try to offset the other increases. So they had to talk about increases. I get to talk about the part where they tried to give it back, and this really benefits our organization. AIG Aviation, one of the largest world-leading in workers' compensation. I've used them many years myself, and so they are one of the top-ranked companies for this benefit. You can see the fiscal impact, saving us $152,000 for the next year. So the recommended motion is to execute this one-year contract for the workers' compensation coverage with AIG. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Larry. I just want to make a comment. It's interesting to see what a broker in working with us does in trying to, you have a tough market, but here's a place where you can offset some of that in a more controlled environment. At least you can see the history, so you're not jumping around. I don't think you get the same hit for jumping in workers' comp as you do in some of the other lines of coverage. So
It was a great story. About half of it is our record, so we'll take that.
Right.
But I also want to let them know that I appreciate the work they did to
Right.
make it even better. So
Your loss history is your loss history, right?
Right.
There you go. Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, mod factors, obviously, I've been involved with AGC, and, you know, we've set up systems and trying to do good things to get our mod factors down, and I know how hard it is on company. And I just want to commend the airport for doing a great job. You can see it. That number means a lot. So good job.
I just want to echo that. That means people aren't getting hurt and injured. We're not impacting their lives in a negative way, and that goes to our safety program, goes to our program to get people back to work in some form as soon as possible. The number is what it is. It's just a formula, and there's years when it's going against you, and you're racking your brain trying to figure out what do you do differently. We have lots of jobs that are dangerous in nature that lots of employers do not have. So to move this far, that fast is really a credit to the organization, and I'm very happy for those reasons. The negotiating on insurance is part of business, but the formula is what gets me excited that at least for right now, and we'll try and keep it going as long as we can, but it's a great story on our employee safety program.
Any other questions? Thank you for finishing our last item as a positive, Larry. If I don't have any more questions, I will entertain a motion to approve the item as presented.
I move that we authorize the president and CEO to execute a one-year contract for RTAA employee workers' compensation insurance coverage for fiscal year 22-23 with AIG Aviation in the amount of $217,717.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Thank you all. On the item 6 now, do we have any member comments, questions, and requests for agenda items? I see none. Monthly administrative reports. Anybody have any questions, concerns about those? They're looking positive world, yeah. Yeah, I know. It's like, what do they always say? If it's too good to be true, it can't be. Yeah. Anyway, if there's no questions on that, I will go to, do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
No public comment. On that note, I will adjourn. Oh, wait.
Yeah,
stop.
we've got to figure out how long staff,
Oh.
do we know how much
For the
time
next
we
meeting?
need for the next meeting? I don't,
Hey, Art, do you need me for the next meeting?
yeah, we do to have a quorum.
Okay, no problem.
If you can,
And
thank
Lori,
you.
that'll be a separate dial-in, correct?
Correct.
Right, so yeah, we've got to figure that in. So how much time do we need for staff on that? I suggest 10:15, sir. That's when it will be?
Okay, so then they'll
10:15.
start the planning meeting at 10:15, and on that note, I will adjourn. Thank you all.
Lovely.
Recording stopped.